The story begins in Basra, Iraq, in the year 1989, when Judge Qasim M left his home with his 6-year-old granddaughter. They were headed toward his car, parked just by the side of the road near their house. As he stepped out, he greeted the building's security guard, as he usually did. Everything seemed perfectly normal. But within 5 minutes, a massive explosion rang out loud and terrifying. People nearby rushed out in panic, while neighbors scrambled to bring household fire extinguishers, trying desperately to put out the flames before they could spread to nearby trees and cause an even bigger disaster. Judge Qasim's family hurried to the windows to see what had happened, only to be struck with horror. Their car was engulfed in flames, and a crowd had already gathered around, stunned and speechless. The police quickly arrived at the scene and found the charred bodies of the judge and his young granddaughter. The forensic team was called in, and the initial investigation revealed a horrifying detail. A hand grenade had been placed inside the car's engine compartment, rigged to explode upon ignition. The security guard, being the last person to have seen the victims alive, was questioned. He stated that everything seemed perfectly fine, and that the judge had greeted him and headed to the car just like on any ordinary day. He claimed he had noticed nothing suspicious prior to the explosion. Investigators then questioned the judge's wife, Fatima. She described her husband as a brave man with a good reputation who always treated people with respect. However, she admitted that due to the nature of his work, he often received both bribes and threats. When asked if he had recently been threatened, she revealed that he was currently handling a major case involving a drug trafficker. The accused had allegedly offered a large bribe in exchange for a lighter sentence and manipulation of evidence, but Judge Qasim firmly rejected the offer. She further revealed that her husband had found a threatening letter slipped under their door not long ago, warning that if he refused to reduce the sentence or accept the money, he would face more serious consequences. Despite the warning, Judge Qasim remained unfazed. She added that just a week before his death, he had mentioned an unknown man approaching him at the door with similar threats. Likely connected to the drug case, she strongly suspected that the trafficker or his associates were behind the attack. Investigators turned their attention to the drug dealer, who had been arrested thanks to one of his own associates, according to police records. Others who had testified against the trafficker had mysteriously died in prison, pointing to a clear motive and method of silencing enemies. However, during questioning, the trafficker denied any involvement. He claimed he still had hope that the judge might be pressured into changing his ruling due to the threats, that replacing the judge with a new one would only make things worse for him. In his view, killing the judge was a foolish move that wouldn't serve his interests. Despite his claims, the police remained unconvinced and summoned the replacement judge for questioning. The new judge denied any prior involvement in the case, explaining that he was newly appointed and hadn't even reviewed the files yet. Investigators decided to wait for the new ruling on the drug dealer to determine whether the murder had benefited him. Days later, the new judge issued a sentence of 20 years in prison and a massive fine. This verdict seemed to the investigators like an attempt to distance himself from suspicion. Next, the focus shifted to the judge's family. His daughter Latifa revealed a long-standing feud between her father and his brother, Ali. The conflict stemmed from their father's funeral. Ali had avoided all the responsibilities and only showed up afterward to claim his inheritance. This deeply angered Judge Qasim, who had handled all arrangements alone. Their relationship deteriorated after the estate was divided, and they had been estranged ever since. Further investigations uncovered that Ali had recently declared bankruptcy, despite owning a large company. He was living in another city, which raised suspicions about a potential motive involving the inheritance. Ali was summoned for questioning but denied any involvement. He claimed he wasn't even aware of his brother's death until contacted by the police. He insisted that he was financially stable, despite his bankruptcy, and allowed police to examine his bank accounts, which ultimately showed no clear motive. Investigators then began reviewing the cases Judge Qasim had been handling before his death. One in particular stood out, a minor from a notoriously lawless family known for arms trafficking. The boy had been sentenced to death for rape and murder, but the sentence was reduced to 20 years. Due to his age, he was only 16. The teen was brought in for questioning. He denied knowing anything but implied that someone from his family, perhaps his father or uncle, might be responsible. He casually admitted that in his family, violence was normal. He recounted how he had raped and murdered the only girl he ever loved when she threatened to report him. No one in his family cared or tried to stop him. His father was then brought in, denied any involvement, dismissing the idea entirely. If I wanted to kill a judge, I wouldn't use a bomb. I'm an arms dealer. You think I don't have snipers? Besides, I cut ties with my son because of his crimes. I have no reason to kill the judge. Surprisingly, the young criminal later requested another meeting with investigators. He revealed that someone had visited him in prison and told him that his uncle had a plan to get him out, because he couldn't bear to see him imprisoned. When asked for the visitor's name, the boy stumbled and said he couldn't remember. When pressed about the date, he said the visitor came on Monday after the judge had already been killed, making his testimony unreliable. The investigation then turned toward the judge's son-in-law and the father of the murdered child. Police records showed that he had once been a police officer but had been dismissed, despite his poor financial condition. He shared a joint bank account with his wife, raising the possibility that he stood to gain from the judge's death. His name was Hassan, and during his interrogation, he denied any wrongdoing. He claimed he had a good relationship with the judge, who had even helped him financially and treated him like a son. Every Friday, the two would drive together to the mosque in the judge's car. So why would he plant a bomb in the same car he regularly rode in? This one statement became a turning point in the case. Investigators asked themselves, who knew about this routine? And who stood to benefit from the deaths of both the judge and his son-in-law? Further investigations revealed that Hassan had been dismissed from the police force due to an issue involving a woman. This led police to question Latifa, the judge's daughter, and Hassan's wife. Faced with mounting evidence, she finally confessed. Yes, she admitted, I wanted both my father and husband dead. My father forced me into this marriage. When I later discovered that my husband was unfaithful and asked for a divorce, my father refused. He said he already knew about the affair, but kept silent to preserve his social status. He didn't care about my feelings. That's when my anger toward them turned to hatred. She continued, I hired a hitman and asked him to shoot them both. But he suggested using a bomb instead. It would be safer and harder to trace. Since I knew that my father and husband left together every Friday morning in the car, I figured it would be the perfect time. But things didn't go as planned. On that particular Friday, she said, my husband didn't go out in the car. After lunch, my daughter insisted on getting candy and started crying. I asked her father to go get her some, but my father insisted on taking her himself. I told him not to go far, just to the nearby shop. I never imagined he'd drive farther away. I had no idea they'd both be in the car that day. Latifa was sentenced to life in prison.